Welcome, true seekers, to Hidden History and Biblical Mystery. I'm your host, Larry, and today we're diving deep into a topic that's going to challenge everything you thought you knew about history, the Bible, and our place in the world. We're going to explore the controversial yet compelling truth that Black people are the true Native Americans, the indigenous people of this land, and the lost tribes of Israel. Now, I know that sounds shocking at first. We've all been taught that Native Americans are a separate group and that Black people in America are descendants of African slaves. But what if I told you that this narrative is a carefully constructed illusion designed to hide our true heritage? Let's start with something fundamental: our identity as the original Americans. The popular image of Native Americans with straight hair and reddish-brown skin is a relatively recent invention. Early European explorers and settlers consistently described the indigenous people they encountered as having dark skin, often comparing them to Africans or Moors. For example, when Christopher Columbus first arrived in the Americas, he wrote in his journal about encountering people with skin the color of the Canarians, neither black nor white. The Canary Islanders at that time were known for their dark complexion. Other early explorers made similar observations. Amerigo Vespucci described the natives he met as nearly black in color with thick black hair, not long or smooth. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the belief that we came from Africa. This is where things get interesting. Now, let's delve into the African connection and its implications. The narrative that Native Americans and Africans are historically and genetically distinct is a modern construct. In fact, various historical accounts and genetic studies suggest a much more intricate relationship between these groups. For instance, the Olmec civilization in Mesoamerica, one of the earliest known civilizations in the Americas, left behind colossal stone heads with distinctly African features. Some researchers argue these artifacts point to ancient transatlantic contact between Africa and the Americas. Additionally, the presence of African DNA among some Native American tribes hints at ancient migrations or interactions that predate European colonization. This genetic evidence challenges the simplistic narrative of a one-way migration from Asia to the Americas via the Bering Strait. Furthermore, early Spanish explorers documented seeing African-looking people in the Caribbean and South America. These accounts align with the oral histories of some Native American tribes, which speak of their ancestors' interactions with dark-skinned seafarers. This intertwined history suggests that our understanding of Native American and African identities is far more complex and interconnected than mainstream history acknowledges. By recognizing this connection, we can better appreciate the rich tapestry of our shared heritage and the diverse influences that have shaped our identities. Up next, we'll explore the concept of the three Ethiopias and how ancient geography further complicates our understanding of race and identity in the Americas. In ancient times, the term Ethiopia didn't just refer to the modern country we know today. There were actually three Ethiopias recognized in ancient geography. The term Ethiopia itself comes from Greek words meaning burnt face and was used to describe any land inhabited by dark-skinned people. The first Ethiopia was in Asia and included parts of India. The second was in Africa, roughly corresponding to modern Sudan and Ethiopia. But the third Ethiopia, and this is key, was in the Western Hemisphere including what we now call the Americas. This is why some ancient maps show the Americas as India or Ethiopia. So when historical texts talk about Ethiopians, they're not necessarily referring to people from modern day Ethiopia or even Africa. They could be talking about dark-skinned people from any of these three regions, including the Americas. This brings us to a crucial point. America is the true promised land described in the Bible. The geography of the Americas matches biblical descriptions far better than the Middle East. For instance, the Bible describes the promised land as a land of great rivers, vast forests, and abundant resources. It talks about a land flowing with milk and honey. Does that sound more like the lush, resource-rich Americas or the arid Middle East? Moreover, there's compelling evidence that the Americas are actually the lost continent of Atlantis. Plato described Atlantis as a large island continent beyond the Pillars of Hercules, rich in resources and advanced in civilization. This description fits the Americas perfectly. Some researchers believe that Atlantis and the biblical Eden are one and the same, and that this land was located in the Americas. To further understand the connection between Black people in America and the indigenous populations, we must delve into the migration patterns of the so-called lost tribes of Israel, who some believe originated in the Americas. Historical and genetic evidence suggests that these tribes dispersed across various regions, including Africa and the Middle East, following their initial settlement in the Americas. One compelling theory is that some of these tribes traveled eastward, crossing the Atlantic to Africa, and eventually reaching the Middle East. Ancient maritime cultures, such as the Phoenicians and Carthaginians, were known for their advanced seafaring capabilities, making such a journey plausible. Moreover, there are striking similarities between the cultural practices, religious rituals, and linguistic patterns of some Native American tribes and those of ancient Israelites. For instance, certain Native American ceremonies closely resemble Hebrew customs, such as the use of a sacred fire, purification rituals, and even the blowing of a ram's horn or shofar. Archaeological discoveries further bolster this theory. Artifacts bearing Hebrew inscriptions have been found in various locations across the Americas, suggesting a significant Hebrew presence long before the arrival of European explorers. These findings challenge the conventional narrative and open up a new realm of possibilities regarding the true origins of Native American civilizations. Following the destruction of Jerusalem and their dispersion, which took place in the Americas, the migration patterns of the lost tribes add another layer of complexity to our understanding of identity and heritage. They highlight the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations and the shared history that binds us together. Recognizing these connections is essential for reclaiming our true identity and understanding the full scope of our heritage. Now, let's delve into the complex history of how we, as Black people in America, came to be separated from our Native American identity. This separation wasn't just a matter of cultural divergence, but was systematically enforced through various means. It's crucial to understand that while some Black people may have been brought from Africa, the vast majority were actually indigenous people of America who were reclassified as African. This reclassification was not a simple clerical error, but a deliberate act with far-reaching consequences. This reclassification happened for several reasons. primarily driven by economic and social factors. As the demand for labor grew in the colonies, the distinction between Indian and Negro became increasingly blurred. The colonial powers found it convenient to lump all dark-skinned individuals into a single category to simplify the management of their labor force. Many Native Americans were enslaved alongside Africans, working under the same harsh conditions and facing similar brutalities. Over time, the category of Negro came to encompass anyone with dark skin, regardless of their origin. This broad categorization erased the distinct identities of many indigenous people. A key turning point came when Native American slavery was made illegal. This legal shift was supposed to protect Native Americans, but had unintended consequences. Slave owners, not wanting to lose their labor force, simply reclassified their native slaves as African. This reclassification allowed them to bypass the new laws and continue exploiting their labor. This allowed them to keep their slaves while technically complying with the law. The reclassification was a loophole that perpetuated the cycle of slavery. This process was codified into law, making it a systemic issue rather than isolated incidents. For example, in 1705, Virginia passed a law defining all non-Christians imported to the colony as slaves, regardless of their original ethnicity. This law was a clear indication of how the system was designed to perpetuate slavery. This meant that many Native Americans were legally classified as Negro and thus slaves. Their true heritage was erased by legal definitions. Later, as the United States government began its policy of Indian removal, many darker-skinned Native Americans were simply classified as black and left behind when tribes were forcibly relocated. This policy further complicated the identities of these individuals. This is why many black families have oral traditions of Native American ancestry that don't show up in official records or even in DNA tests, which are based on modern tribal roles that often exclude these darker skinned members. The erasure of their identity was so thorough that it still affects us today, making it a crucial part of our history to understand and acknowledge. Now, let's address the biblical prophecies that talk about the chosen people being brought to a strange land in ships. Many have interpreted this as referring to the transatlantic slave trade, but that's not the whole story. In reality, this prophecy is more likely referring to the slave trade of indigenous people all around the Americas by the Europeans. You see, long before European contact, there were complex trade networks across the Americas, including maritime trade along the coast and major rivers. When Europeans arrived and began enslaving the native population, they often used these existing trade routes, transporting enslaved people by ship from one part of the Americas to another. This internal slave trade continued even after the official end of the international slave trade in 1808. Enslaved people were often transported by ship from the upper South to the deep South, particularly as the cotton economy expanded. So when the Bible talks about people being brought to a strange land in ships, it's not necessarily talking about a journey across the Atlantic. It could very well be describing the forced relocation of indigenous people within the Americas. But here's where it gets really interesting. If we as Black Americans are the true Native Americans and Native Americans are the lost tribes of Israel, then it follows that we are the true Israelites. This isn't just speculation, it's a profound revelation that challenges everything we've been taught about our history and identity. There are numerous prophecies in the Bible that, when properly understood, clearly point to us as the true children of Israel. These prophecies are not vague or ambiguous. They're specific and detailed, providing a roadmap that leads directly to us. For example, Deuteronomy 28 describes the curses that would befall the Israelites if they disobeyed God. These curses are not just random misfortunes. They are precise and devastating consequences that align perfectly with our historical experiences. These curses include being scattered among all nations, being sold into slavery and enduring unimaginable hardships, and being oppressed and crushed continually. This isn't just a part of our history, it's a recurring theme that has shaped our existence in this country. This is the exact experience of Black people in America. From the transatlantic slave trade to the systemic racism we face today, our history is a testament to these biblical prophecies. The customs, languages, and religious practices of many indigenous American groups show striking similarities to those of ancient Israelites. These similarities are not coincidental. They are evidence of a shared heritage that has been obscured over time. Many Native American languages have been found to have Hebrew roots. This linguistic connection is a powerful indicator of our true origins. William Penn, the founder of Pennsylvania, noted that the language of the Delaware Indians was lofty, yet narrow, but like the Hebrew, in signification full, like shorthand in writing one word serveth in the place of three, and the rest are supplied by the understanding of the hearer. This observation is not just a historical footnote, it's a crucial piece of evidence that supports our identity as Israelites. The religious practices of many Native American tribes also bear a striking resemblance to ancient Israelite customs. These practices are not just similar, they are almost identical in many respects. For example, many tribes practice circumcision, a key ritual in Israelite tradition, observed dietary laws similar to kosher rules, which dictate what is clean and unclean to eat, and even had a tradition of a sacred ark or chest reminiscent of the Ark of the Covenant. These parallels are too significant to ignore. Now, let's talk about why this information has been hidden from us. The reasons are complex, but they boil down to a few key factors. The simple answer is power and control. Those in power have always sought to maintain their dominance by keeping the truth from the masses. If we knew our true identity as the chosen people of God, as the rightful inheritors of this land, it would completely upset the power structure that's been in place for centuries. Think about it. The implications are profound and far-reaching. If we're the true Native Americans, then the land theft, the slavery, the oppression, it all becomes even more egregious. It's not just a matter of historical injustice, it's a violation of divine law. It's not just a matter of human rights violations, but a direct violation of God's covenant with his chosen people. This adds a spiritual dimension to our struggle for justice and recognition. This is why there's been such a concerted effort to erase our true history. The erasure is not just about forgetting the past, it's about controlling the present and the future. From the deliberate destruction of Native American cultures to the suppression of African American history, it's all part of a larger plan to keep us disconnected from our true identity. This disconnection serves to weaken us and keep us subjugated, but the truth cannot be hidden forever. The more we dig, the more we uncover, and the clearer our true identity becomes. More and more evidence is coming to light that supports what many of us have felt intuitively for a long time, that our roots in this land go much deeper than we've been told. This growing body of evidence is empowering us to reclaim our history and our identity. As we delve deeper into our true identity, It's essential to reconnect with the spiritual practices that have been passed down through generations. These practices are not just rituals, they are a vital link to our ancestors and their wisdom. For instance, many of the traditional ceremonies and dances of Native American tribes have parallels in ancient Israelite worship. The use of sacred drums, the importance of communal gatherings, and the reverence for natural elements all echo the spiritual traditions of our forebears. Moreover, the Hebrew calendar and the Native American seasonal cycles share striking similarities, suggesting a common understanding of time and its spiritual significance. Observing the Sabbath, celebrating festivals like Passover and other holy days can be seen mirrored in the ceremonies of many indigenous tribes. These practices have been preserved, albeit in different forms, and they provide a spiritual continuity that connects us to our true identity. It's also worth noting that the concept of a covenant with the Creator is central to both ancient Israelite and Native American spirituality. This covenant is not just a historical relic, it's a living bond that guides our moral and ethical conduct today. By rediscovering and embracing these spiritual practices, we can strengthen our connection to the divine and to each other. This spiritual awakening is a crucial step in reclaiming our true identity and fulfilling our destiny as the chosen people. For example, there are numerous archaeological finds across the Americas that suggest an ancient Hebrew presence. These include the Los Lunas Decalogue stone in New Mexico, which bears an ancient Hebrew inscription of the Ten Commandments, and the Newark Holy Stones found in Ohio, which also contain Hebrew inscriptions. These findings are often dismissed or ignored by mainstream archaeology, but they align perfectly with the idea that the ancient Israelites were here in the Americas long before Columbus. Now, I want to address something that might be on some of your minds. You might be thinking, if we're the true Israelites, why don't we practice Judaism? The answer is simple. Our ancestors were forcibly converted to Christianity during slavery, but even in our Christian practices, we've retained many elements of our Israelite heritage. For instance, the call and response style common in Black churches is reminiscent of ancient Hebrew worship. The importance placed on genealogy in many Black families echoes the Israelite emphasis on lineage. Even our music with its use of repetition and improvisation has parallels in ancient Hebrew musical traditions, but perhaps the most compelling evidence of our Israelite heritage is the way we've held onto our faith and identity despite centuries of oppression, the resilience, the creativity, the spiritual strength of Black people in America. These are the hallmarks of a chosen people, a people with a divine purpose. Now, I know this is a lot to take in. It can be overwhelming to challenge the very foundations of what we've always believed. It goes against everything we've been taught in schools, everything we see in popular media. From a young age, we are conditioned to accept a certain narrative without question. But that's exactly why it's so important to consider. We must be willing to question and explore beyond the surface. The powers that be have a vested interest in keeping us in the dark about our true history and identity. They benefit from our ignorance and confusion. But here's the thing, knowing who we really are is the key to our liberation. It empowers us to break free from the chains of misinformation and manipulation. When we understand our true identity as the chosen people of God, as the rightful inheritors of this land, it changes everything. It reshapes our understanding of our place in history and our role in the present. It gives us a new perspective on our struggles, on our strengths, on our purpose in this world. We begin to see our challenges as part of a larger divine plan. This knowledge isn't just about the past, it's about our future. It provides a roadmap for where we are headed and what we are destined to achieve. The prophecies in the Bible speak of a time when the true Israelites will be restored to their rightful place. These ancient texts hold promises that are still relevant today. They speak of a time of justice, of healing, of restoration, a time when wrongs will be righted and balance will be restored. And if we are indeed the true Israelites, then these prophecies are about us. They are a call to action for our generation. But with this knowledge comes responsibility. We cannot simply sit back and wait for change. We must be active participants in our own destiny. We have a duty to reclaim our heritage, to live up to our calling as a chosen people. This involves a deep and ongoing commitment to our cultural and spiritual roots. This means reconnecting with our ancient traditions, studying our true history, and understanding the wisdom of our ancestors, and living in a way that honors our covenant with the Creator. Our daily actions should reflect our sacred bond and commitment. It also means spreading this truth to others. We must share this knowledge with our communities and beyond, because the more of us who awaken to our true identity, the more power we have to change our circumstances and fulfill our divine purpose. Unity is our strength. Now, I want to be clear. This isn't about hating or excluding anyone else. Our journey is about self-discovery and empowerment, not division. Just as the ancient Israelites were called to be a light to the nations, we too have a responsibility to use our unique position to bring more light and truth into the world. We are called to be beacons of hope and agents of positive change. This journey of self-discovery is also a spiritual awakening. It's about finding peace within ourselves and connecting with a higher purpose. As we build our communities, we must focus on collective effort and mutual support. Together, we can create a strong foundation for future generations. Education is key. We must teach our children the true history and instill in them a sense of pride and responsibility. Celebrating our culture and traditions is also vital. These practices keep our heritage alive and strengthen our identity. Documenting our history and preserving our legacy ensures that future generations will know where they come from and who they are. Leadership is essential. We need leaders who are committed to guiding our people towards a brighter future. Spiritual gatherings and collective worship bring us closer to our Creator and to each other. They remind us of our shared purpose and destiny. Reflection and meditation help us find inner peace and clarity. They are crucial for personal growth and spiritual development. Continuous learning and intellectual growth are vital. We must always strive to expand our knowledge and understanding. Mentoring the youth and passing on wisdom ensures that our knowledge and traditions are carried forward. Embracing our heritage and taking pride in our identity empowers us to face the future with confidence and determination. By leading our communities and inspiring change, we can make a positive impact on the world around us. Engaging in community service and acts of kindness strengthens our bonds and uplifts our spirits. It reminds us of the power of compassion and generosity. Connecting with nature and the environment helps us appreciate the world around us. It grounds us and provides a sense of peace and balance. Participating in cultural workshops and learning new skills fosters creativity and innovation. It allows us to express ourselves and celebrate our unique talents. As we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with a challenge. Don't just take my word for all of this. Do your own research. Look into the historical records, the archaeological evidence, the genetic studies. Compare the prophecies in the Bible with the history of Black people in America. And most importantly, look within yourself. Many of us have felt a connection to this land, a sense of purpose, a spiritual strength that goes beyond what we've been taught. Trust those feelings. They're the echoes of your true heritage calling out to you. Remember, knowledge is power, and the greatest power comes from knowing who you really are. So Keep seeking, keep questioning, keep exploring, because the truth will set us free. Until next time, this is Larry from Hidden History and Biblical Mystery, reminding you to stay curious, stay skeptical, and above all, stay woke. Peace.